Grinn here, PlanetSide2TV with Matt Higby, the creative director of PlanetSide 2. Last few minutes of SOE Live.
Yeah, really. Like the band is off the stage and
everything's cleared out.
All cleared out.
Yeah. So thought I'd steal him away, maybe miss his flight for a couple questions. I think he's willing to do it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and cut through some of these. So a few general questions about certs.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plan you think maybe for Empire-specific certs? Other than for Empire-specific weapons and vehicle certs, maybe just generally gauged towards Empires themselves?
Well, sort of. We've talked about doing Empire-specific abilities. Like maybe the VS will have access to some different types of jump jets on their light assault than the NC or the TR will have access to. I love the idea of doing that kind of stuff. We just need to figure out where it fits. And as we start kind of going further down that road, we want to put in Empire-specific abilities for Maxes. Right now we don't have those. We want to put those in eventually. We want to have, like you mentioned, more Empire-specific weapons, have especially anti-vehicle weapons. We just got the Empire-specific heavy assault anti-infantry weapons in. Mm-hmm. We need to get those all balanced, and then we want to put in more and more stuff like that to really let each Empire exemplify the things that they're supposed to be good at, as well as possible. So in terms of individual certs, maybe on some of the common pool vehicles, like maybe the Lightning, you'll have a Empire-specific. I think it'll probably always end up going back to weapons, though. Like you would have an Empire-specific primary weapon attachment that you could get for a Lightning, for instance. Okay. And that would be a TR-specific one, an NC-specific one, and a VS-specific one.
Got
I really like the idea of doing that a lot.
Cool. Right on. All right. Let's see here. So someone brought up the possibility of having a kind of a deconstruction mechanic. You kind of talked about that a little bit, to help swap loadouts, reduce acquire times, and maybe refund or reduce spawn pricing, which seems very much in the lore, and it would actually work in the system. What limiting factors in its implementation do you kind of see there?
I mean, you have to put in as much as possible to keep people from exploiting it. When their vehicle's about to die, they can hit the button and get resources back. There's really easy ways to solve that. Of course, we could say that the resources refunded are based on the amount of health of the vehicle and the amount of time that it takes to deconstruct is long, so you can't just like duck behind a corner and deconstruct your vehicle. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those things is just, once you start figuring out how to do it, the devil's in the details. I think in general that's something that we want to do long term. We just need to figure out exactly how to do it and what the best way is to do it. But I like that mechanic a lot. Right. I definitely like the idea of not punishing vehicle players. Well, not necessarily punishing, but not having them play by a different set of rules than the infantry players who can easily swap out their loadouts just by going up to a terminal and switching it. I would like that to be a possibility for vehicle players.
In your opinion, do you feel it would be better for them to get a refund on certs, or for it to be cheaper for them, or sorry, not a refund on certs, refund on resources, or cheaper for them to pull out the vehicle next time, or anything along those lines?
I think it's probably better to give them a refund on the resources that they spent on their vehicle.
Based also on probably the vehicle's damage and all that stuff.
It would have to be based on a lot of different things. Like I said, the devil's in the details. You probably would have a fixed maximum amount of refund that you could get on the vehicle, and it would tick down the longer you had the vehicle. So if you drove around this thing for 2 hours, you probably got its use out of it, and we're not going to refund you all the resources for it. But if you just got it for 30 seconds, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot I was going to bring the AA cannon with me, not this AB cannon with me, then you could deconstruct it, get a lot of those resources back, and be able to go respawn that vehicle. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So like I said, it's just a matter of working out all the little details of it, and then the mechanic in general I think is a sound one. We just need to sort out when we can put it in and how it's going to work.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So some beta elements seem to have been shelved for the time being, such as stalker camo, melee enhancements, even some scope types. Are those due to make some sort of return?
Well, most of the scope types are going to stick around. They're just going to be on different types of weapons. So one of the things that we're doing to try to make each one of our weapons have a clear and distinct role is we're changing what attachments it has access to. So if you want to get a carbine rifle that you're really interested in using at nighttime and being like kind of a super sneaky light assault dude who's on the walls of a building killing guys, then that carbine's going to have access to things like night vision and a silencer, but that won't necessarily be every single carbine will have access to that. That's going to be the Night Stalker carbine, which is really situationally designed to be really awesome for this role. Likewise, we might have an assault rifle with a 2-round burst on it. It's highly accurate, long range. That one's going to have access to high velocity ammo, long range scopes, but maybe it won't have access to as many things that are really good for close range stuff, like silencers, like a red dot. or like a laser sight, right? All those things that sort of help you define that gun as being a close-range gun, we would reserve for more of a bullpup assault rifle that's really supposed to be a close-range, close combat type assault rifle. So we have all these different attachments. And of course, I want to say also that there's going to be a lot of generalist weapons that you can create your own role with it, or it can be extremely versatile. It'll have trade-offs in its own right. It might not be the highest damage weapon you can get, but it's sort of more of a medium. It's sort of in between. And then it has access to a lot of different stuff. So if you want to just have a generalist, all-purpose assault rifle that you can use for lots of different stuff, it's not going to be as good as the long-range one at doing long-range stuff. It's not going to be as good as the bullpup at doing short-range stuff. But it'll sort of fit your needs for whatever you need to do.
So
sort of Swiss Army knife.
Build it to your own specifications.
Exactly, yeah.
Makes sense.
So we haven't really gotten rid of any of those scopes. It's just we're putting them on our different side grade weapons in different ways to sort of help refine the role of what each one of those weapons is supposed to be.
Okay.
And other certs too, some of them are going away. We had lots and lots of certs in the game, and maybe a month ago, we set the cert gain rate up really, really high so people could go and unlock all these certs and figure out how they all work. We got a lot of good feedback, and we learned a lot about some of our certs, which ones were good, which ones were really good, too strong maybe even, and which ones sucked. They just weren't good enough. So in some cases, you would get something like, I don't know if this is a really good specific example, but just as like a example, a turn rate one for a tank. So if you had that turn rate one for a tank, people thought it sucked. It just wasn't good enough. And it probably could have gotten integrated with a couple other handling ones to make a generic tank handling line that would feel more valuable as you cert into it. You would notice more of a difference with each cert that you spend, and then when you slot that thing, you feel like, okay, cool, I'm really getting something of value that's recognizable and noticeable out of slotting this particular cert. So we're going back through right now, and we're consolidating some cert lines where we felt like they weren't giving you enough value for the cert points that you spent. And in some cases, that means that we're losing total number of top-end certs that a vehicle or a class has. But the end result is for a player, every time they buy a cert, they're getting something valuable. They're getting something that they recognize the difference in. It's not just like a 1% difference to the speed at which you can raise the cannon up and down in the tank, which is totally indiscernible. And also, at the same time, we're constricting some of the cert lines. So previously we had 10 lines of, or 10 certs in a line that gave you additional speed or something like that. Well, each one of those things was giving you 0.5% or 0.05% of 1 kilometer per hour of additional speed or something like that. So it just felt punishing to have to go through that entire line.
And it didn't feel worth your cert points.
Exactly, yeah. And for us, it would be better for us to say, okay, you know what? We'll have one line. It'll be more, or one cert. It'll be more expensive, maybe than 2/3 of the certs in that entire line were before, but it gives you the entire benefit of it in one big bulk. So you just buy it and boom, now you put that in and you say, hey, cool, I can tell my vehicle is going faster now.
For sure, yeah.
So it stays kind of the same, but the feeling of it is a little bit more. Each time you spend cert points, you should really, really notice the difference. That's a big thing for us, and we're going through our cert line to make sure that
you don't want just small ticks to work up to the overall goal of the cert point.
Yeah, I mean, in some places that's okay. In some places like the vehicle spawn reductions. Because you can tell what the difference is. If I'm reducing it by 5 seconds every single time you can go to it and you can see, okay, I see that it's 25 seconds now. Okay, I see it's 20 seconds now. That's something you can notice, so you're getting a benefit from it. For some of these ones that are a little bit harder, like the speed reduction or hill climbing ability, it's really hard for you to tell the difference between these little incremental upgrades in that, versus if you get one big upgrade in it, it's easy for you to tell the difference. We just don't want you to feel like you bought a cert and you don't recognize that it's doing anything for you. So we're making as many changes as we need to make sure that when you spend cert points, you're getting a recognizable and clearly discernible value for the cert points that you're spending and the item that you're putting in your loadout that came from those cert points. Yeah, so that's a big deal for us.
Cool, awesome.
That's a long-winded answer, huh? Jesus, that was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, you really draw that one out. All right, in early tech tests, we saw players having additional armor pieces added to their model as it kind of went on. Is that due to return attached to cert levels or BR like in PlanetSide?
Those will be cosmetic upgrades.
Okay.
So you'll be able to use station cash to be able to get those.
Okay, so it won't be directly rated to your BR.
Correct. Yeah, they won't give you any additional health. They're not going to be any additional damage mitigation or anything like that. But they're going to be lots of really cool options. Like we had thigh pads, but now you'll be able to get spiked ones or ones with blades on them, all that kind of stuff. And they're going to be purely cosmetic add-ons.
Okay. Well, is there any plan in the future to maybe as your battle rank increases to have some sort of change to the players so you can recognize that, or?
We've definitely talked about different ways to do that. We want to be able to put in rank icons, things like that. I mean, that's not quite the same thing.
Right.
But we do want to put in more stuff connected to battle rank. We're talking now about putting certifications connected to battle rank. So in addition to having the cert points to get it, you have to be a certain battle rank before you can unlock the cert. So you can't just go straight down the line in one particular thing and unlock tons and tons of high-powered certs unless you've earned the battle rank to be able to do it.
Makes sense.
But we're still working out exactly how that's going to work out too, because we do want you to be able to just log into the game and do nothing but be a Liberator pilot if that's what you want to do. And we don't want to constrain you from being able to progress through being a Liberator pilot because you don't have the battle rank to be able to do it.
So you want to balance those right ones according to battle rank.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. All right. So a few more here. As each continent comes out with Amerish on the horizon, you said you've learned plenty of things with base design. Is there a possibility of returning to older continents, changes, especially with new kinds of when new kinds of bases are being made?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. As we make new facilities, I think that's a no-brainer for us to go back on Indar and say, okay, cool, we're getting rid of this amp station, putting a dropship center here, we're getting rid of this biolab and putting an interlink facility here,
Okay.
and whatever other kinds of cool bases that we want to put in the future. We definitely are going to be able to do that. But I do really hope that we have some time to go back on Indar and take some of the stuff that we learned from Esamir and Amerish and integrate that knowledge into Indar.
Right.
We've definitely spent a lot of time on Indar, making and refining Indar, but I think we've learned so much just from constructing the new continents that it would be good for us to go back and touch those other, touch Indar. But the cool thing is we have forever to do it,
Right,
too.
exactly.
When we do put in a interlink facility, when we do put in these other kinds of facilities, that's a really good time for us to go in and say, okay, cool, let's just take this whole area where this biolab was. Let's just completely redo it so it feels like it fits this interlink facility a little bit better. And that's one of the exciting things about working on a game like PlanetSide is it's not like it gets put into a box and never touched again.
Right.
It's always open for us to keep noodling with and changing to make it be cooler and cooler.
You guys will be constantly working on it after release. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not like it stops
Exactly.
once it's released.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys announced outfit housing at SOE Live. We're kind of have a few questions there. Is it player specific or will it be outfit specific?
So we didn't really announce outfit housing.
Okay.
We announced player bases.
Okay.
Which is way cooler than outfit housing,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it's not off in some stupid instance somewhere. It's sitting right on the continent. You built this base, and other guys can come blow it the hell up.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's just going to allow people to sort of construct these areas, create their own defensive perimeters around it, be able to really set up the spot and keep it as a place that they're going to defend it. I expect it to be used heavily by outfits, because outfits are going to be sort of the groups of people that are able to obtain enough resources and pull together the resources to be able to build these really kick-ass bases. And they're also the ones that are going to be most motivated to come and defend those bases. So even if they're all fighting on Amerish and their outfit base on Cirrus gets attacked, they'll go back to their outfit base and try to defend it because it's their home turf.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm really stoked about that. We do have, kind of further down the line, some other plans for being able to do things like outfit housing, like being able to have an outfit home base that you can customize and create your own trophy rooms or defensive perimeters around. Maybe it can get attacked, all those kinds of things.
Awesome.
All this just goes back into us wanting you to be able to create your own gameplay experiences.
Craft the world.
Yeah. We want players to be able to create their own gameplay experiences. That's what PlanetSide's all about. We just created a toolbox. That's all the game is. It's just a toolbox of things that you as players can use to make really cool things happen. If you want to use galaxies to drop off onto this base, go for it. We're not telling you you should. Maybe that's a good way to do it. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. Maybe tanks are the way to take over that base. Your tactic is the one that's going to be, you're going to have to solve the tactic for being able to attack it. The defenders are going to have to solve the tactic for being able to defend it against all the different strategies that you come up with. And that infinite complexity all just comes from players' own inspiration and genius and being able to figure out how to play the game better. What we want to do is create more and more tools like that that allow players to really express themselves in just how they play the game. Not even express themselves in creating user-generated content, but just express themselves in how they play the game and how they solve these different puzzles that are put in front of them.
Yeah, and seeing all these different outfits and the ways that they do these things, it's awesome. Each time you see somebody doing something new or a different approach, it's really cool. You guys provided that sort of outlet for them to be that creative. Yeah,
we wanted there to always be more than one way to skin a cat. If you see a giant line of tanks, there's as many different ways to combat that line of tanks as there are player ideas. You know, as people will figure out all these different tactics for it. That's great. That's cool.
Just touching on player housing, just a few more. So, where exactly would, not player housing, where would they be able to be placed?
The bases?
The bases, yeah.
I mean, we're going to talk a lot more about the player-created bases probably over the next few months post-launch. That's going to be one of our big initiatives, and we're going to get a lot of feedback from it. The way I think that I'm thinking it's going to be set up right now. And again, this is extremely early.
Sure.
I probably shouldn't even be talking about it, but fuck it, here you go. The idea would be that we have a continent, and rather than having a lot of prefabbed outfits already on the continent, we would have sort of areas etched out that were really kind of designed to have outposts on them. There's roads that kind of go through them. And then potentially they would have something like a power source. This area would say that it generates 10 gigawatts of energy.
Okay.
Or maybe 15 gigawatts of energy or something like that. And that power source defines the stuff that you can put in there. And then also the space sort of defines what sort of layouts you can put in there, right?
Okay.
Because if it's surrounded by hills, but there's this nice little valley area in there, but it's not really big, well, then you can create something really dense. And if there's a huge power source in there, you can create a really, really dense thing with lots of shields, lots of turrets, lots of cool stuff for vehicle terminals and all that kind of crap.
That makes sense.
But if there's not very much power there, then maybe you have to create something that's a little bit more sparse. Or maybe you have to put in objects like amplifiers or whatever to be able to get more power out of it. But those are expensive in terms of resources. So really we can build up a whole cool strategic suite of different tools that people can use and figure out how to manage them however they want. And a lot of this also goes into how we might integrate player forge into the game.
Yeah.
So your ability to create different types of turrets based on rule sets. So you make this awesome turret model, and then you have a certain number of points that you can spend on the attributes for that turret. How fast it fires, what type of things it fires, is it hackable or not, whatever kinds of things that you want to put in like that. And then you can put that on the marketplace, and the outfits that are building these bases might say, hey, I need Tito Man's Mark III turret to be able to defend this base the proper way, so they go buy that turret to be able to place in that particular area. So again, all of this just comes back to letting players figure out the best way to build the game up for themselves and letting their own individual genius sort of shine through.
Right.
We love that a lot.
Last touch on the bases.
Okay.
You guys maybe see that they would offer any perks or benefits to who owns it?
The player-owned bases, or
Yeah.
just bases in general?
The player-owned bases.
Well, the player-owned bases, who owns it is going to be whoever destroyed it, built up their own. So the perk is really you get to configure this however you want.
Okay.
If you capture it, we might say that you don't necessarily have to deconstruct it, but maybe you do deconstruct it. And if you do deconstruct it, that means you can rebuild it however you want it to be.
You get all those resources from it.
Yeah. I don't know. Feels like there's a glitch in the Matrix.
All right, let's. Anyway, about outfit and player bases. Do you guys see that they're going to offer any perks or benefits to who owns it?
Well, really, it's going to be about who owns the territory that it's on. So if you go in and the Devil Dogs have some really kick-ass base that they've set up that's highly defensible and awesome, then when you go capture it, maybe one of the things that you can do is deconstruct it and build your own. But maybe you can just keep it, and now you're using their own badass defenses that they built up against them when they come try to take it back. Those are all sort of ideas that are possible within there. But the idea of you being able to go in, assault a base, start to deconstruct it, and then the Devil Dogs have a certain amount of time to be able to come back to save their base. If they could recapture it before it gets deconstructed, then they get to keep it. But if not, then it goes away, and the guys who had captured it get to have that land, that lot, essentially, where the base is, to be able to rebuild. That's sort of where we're going with the overall design for the player-owned bases. But again, we're in a really early stage where we're still trying to flesh out exactly what we want to do with it.
Right.
So that's not necessarily guaranteed to be what it is.
I mean, you guys have a lot of stuff ahead of that, you know, in order before you're going to get to that sort of player-owned bases.
No, that's right. I mean, right now we're really focused on launch. We're focused on having a really well-balanced, really fun game at launch. And then, further than that, we're going to be building out our continents, figuring out how the player-owned bases factor into it. I'm super excited about it. I think it's one of the coolest aspects of the game. We've been planning on doing player-owned bases since before we announced the game to anybody. This has always been a medium-term, long-term goal for PlanetSide 2 is to have an extremely robust, exciting, competitive, compelling sandbox experience that you can play in. So.
Well, that kind of jumps to the kind of last question I want to talk to you about. You're really big on MLG. You really, you're passionate about the different areas in that. So where do you see PlanetSide 2 in that arena?
I have a lot of ideas about how PlanetSide 2 can work. I consider PlanetSide 2 to be a competitive gaming experience, and I think that's the core of what an esport needs to be, but it is not an esport just because it is a competitive gaming experience. One thing that I think a lot of people do is they look very narrowly at what esports is and what esports can be based on what they see as esports right now, as 5 dudes sitting in a booth playing against 5 other dudes sitting in a booth on a stage. I think that is a type of esport, just like basketball is a type of sport versus golf is a type of sport versus football is a type of sport versus rugby is a type of sport.
Right.
I think there's a lot of diversity that's possible within esports for being able to create different stuff. The one thing that I would say, and we do have a lot of thoughts about tournament modes and esports stuff going forward, but I don't want to talk about it too much. The one thing that I would say is it's critical to me that whatever we do with esports in the tournament mode doesn't pull people away from playing the main PlanetSide 2 game. We don't want all the competitive players, all the competitive outfits to suddenly disappear from Araxis because they're off playing in instance fights all the time to be able to get ladder points, to be able to compete in tournaments.
Exactly.
So whatever we do is going to be really tightly integrated in with the actual achievements and play within the battlefield of Araxis itself. Okay. So your outfit, if you want to be going to tournaments and being able to participate in these big prize pool things, you need to show your stuff in actually playing the game. The outfit points and ladder points that you earn are going to be earned through playing against 2,000 other people on the continent that you're fighting on in the actual overall game, not just purely off in some tournament mode where you're fighting against another group of 12 or 24 or 250.
Right on. It all makes sense. All right, well, Matt Higby,
Yep.
we appreciate your time once again.
Of course, man. Thank you guys for coming out.
Absolutely, it was a great time. Grinn, PlanetSide 2 TV. Stay tuned.